I'm in.
Hello. Welcome, everybody. Hi, Ben.
Oh, yeah.
Hello.
If you could all put your cameras on, that'd be lovely. I like to see your faces. Although, Angela, I do like your Robin picture. Welcome. Lovely to see you.
Hello, Laura.
Hello.
Laura, this is Irene Loudon here. Laura, I don't seem to be able to put on my camera. Can you do it from your end?
Yeah, I'll just ask you to start your video and then it should just pop up and you just have to press accept.
Lovely.
Hi.
Oh, no.
Perfect.
Here we are.
Lovely.
Yay.
Brilliant.
Did it.
Hello.
That's why we have Shania, you see. Technical genius around here. Great. Well, it's really lovely to see you all. How are we for time? Are we dead on? I think we'll start.
Yeah.
Shania will keep an eye on the door and let people in if they come in. But I think we'll start if that's okay. It's really lovely to see you all, and really like a big thank you actually for coming and being interested even in what we've got to say. I'm just going to start straight out with a question, and if you could use the chat, so if you use the chat, and I want you to answer the question: would you rather talk about the past, the present, or the future? The past, the present, or the future? And stick it in the chat. Let me know what's your favourite thing to talk about. So Elena is present. Well, that's exciting, isn't it? Talking about the future can be quite fun. Nobody's yet said past. Oh, here we go. Needs the past to understand, but the present to work with. Yeah, that's nice, Reza. Absolutely. Brilliant. So far, no people would rather talk about the past, sometimes the past, yeah. So I think we can have some really good conversations, can't we, with people, particularly people living with dementia, when we talk about the past, because of course those are the long-term memories that seem to be more accessible for longer. But, and I'm sure that's the reason why you're here today, we can often rely on reminiscence as the go-to when we're talking to people living with dementia. And it's not always the perfect thing to be talking about. So I'm going to today I'm going to be going through that. I'm going to be going through some three key things. How to gently pique the interest of people using the engagement of the world around them right now. And also following a tried and tested process, really, that sparks feel-good conversation right now. And I'm going to be telling you a story about my journey of learning how to do this. So I'm going to kind of give you some background, and I'm going to introduce you to a lovely gentleman that I used to work with through storytelling. I haven't actually got him here to show you, but I will be telling you the story of him. So before I begin though, I'm going to introduce myself. I never want to assume people know who I am. I'm Laura. I'm one of the co-founders of Memory Matters. I co-founded it with my sister-in-law, Kate Smith, both nurses, both frustrated about the lack of support for people living with dementia in the community, but also within the care home environment as well. And we've 11 years yesterday, was our birthday yesterday. So Memory Matters is 11 years old yesterday. And over the years, we've provided lots of different projects and lots of different training sessions for people. And our main aim is to help people living with dementia thrive. And we do that through working with other organisations and individuals to give them as much as they can to be able to do that really good work. So that's me. And I'll also introduce you to Shania, who you'll see on the screen as well. Shania, if you can give us a wave. Shania is sort of my right-hand woman who sorts everything out and thinks about things way before I do. So like 2 minutes before the workshop, when I'm thinking, oh my goodness, where's that thing where I need to share? And Shania's already thought about that this morning, or actually probably before that. So that's Shania. So any sort of tech questions, she's your lady. Okay, so I'm gonna just tell you a story about when I was 17 years old, and I was working actually at the what was the mental hospital, massive mental hospital in Bodmin, called St Lawrence's. It's a huge, or it was, it's been knocked down now, most of it, but it was the most hugest building, really, really high ceilings, massive big long windows, huge long corridors. And this is where people living with dementia were nursed. This is the latter stages, so where care in the community had come in. We were looking at closing these massive hospitals, but there were still a fair few wards that were still open. And I looked after a man called Bill, and Bill always reminded me of Winston Churchill. So you can imagine exactly what Bill looked like now, can't you? He looked like Winston Churchill. He was an absolutely lovely man. I always remember that his bottom lip used to come over his top lip like that. And he used to shout at people as they were walking past. And I remember being really young and thinking, oh, this is a bit scary. And actually, as I got to know Bill, of course, like we get to know anybody, Bill was actually the softest, gentlest man. And he would sit in the corridor, which was made to look like there's some sort of attempt to make the corridor look homely. So there's this like little corner of the corridor that's got a bit of wallpaper on and a bookshelf and a comfy chair, and that's where he would sit. That was his favorite place. And I just want to put this in because I think this is really important. Bill was in his 90s, right? And we know that he would have been in the hospital for a very, very long time. So I've just discovered this amazing woman called Barbara Robb. Now, I'd not heard of Barbara Robb. Has anyone else heard of Barbara Robb? Just out of interest? No, I hadn't either. But she wrote this book in the 1960s. She wrote this book. She started off a diary called Diary of Nobody. And she was a psychiatrist. And she had noticed how badly older people in hospitals and these large mental hospitals had been treated. And she became an activist and spoke out basically about the inadequacy of the care of older people at that time. And it actually caused this big, I want to say a big change. It didn't cause a big change, but it caused massive ripples. And the particular hospital that Bill was in was investigated for the things that Rob had shown to happen in other hospitals. You know, things like literally queuing people up for baths and being strip washed, bathed, you know, and then the next person in. And she said, and I quote her, I felt that I would never have another really easy moment unless I did everything I could to try and right this situation. So so this new discovery of Rob, I feel like she's a kindred spirit with me, with this idea that once you see it, it's like, first of all, it's like not on my watch. And then it's, you know, what can we do to make sure that those things never happen again? So going back to Bill, because I think that this really gives you an idea of what Bill's life has been like. Okay, so he was born at the turn of the century. And at the age of 14, Bill had been caught in a fight, and he had thrown a stone at another boy, which had hit him in the temple and caused a brain injury that was life-changing for the other child. And Bill was then put into St Lawrence's and stayed there for the rest of his life. And that was kind of normal. That stuff happened. When I was working in this hospital, the realization of how many people had been in this hospital for such a long time and had actually not even had a mental health problem but were put in there. There were people who were deaf that were put in. There were single mums who were put in. And I'm sure, you know, most of you know that that's kind of what happened. But I remember being really young and really shocked at these stories of the people that I was working with. And Bill was one of those. Now, Bill used to have cigarettes. He used to have 6 cigarettes. I remember this. So like even we decided how many cigarettes Bill could have during the day. You know, that's how institutionalized it was. And it would be my job or anyone's job on the shift, but basically you would be told whether you were doing Bill's cigarettes that day. We used to work 12-hour shifts. And it was during the cigarette breaks or cigarette times, because we used to have to put it in his mouth and light it for him. And then sit with him, obviously for safety reasons. And of course, having actual time to have conversations and speak to somebody was really special for me. So I was able to sit with Bill and listen to him and listen to his stories. Now, probably what's coming up for you is exactly what came up for me was, okay, so I know how to reminisce with older people. I was kind of learning that. It was the beginning of my game, but learning how to reminisce, that's what we do. We talk about old times. Now, I knew that that wasn't going to work with Bill. I mean, what would we talk about? His whole entire life spent in this awful institution. What were we, you know, what was there that I was going to be able to have a good conversation about? We know that reminiscence has some really good evidence base. And I don't want you to go away from this conversation thinking there's no place for reminiscence. I think it's just part of our toolkit, isn't it? And knowing what we can use when. It's so positive because it connects to our identity, doesn't it? When we talk about our past, we're connecting to our identity and what's important to us. It reaffirms those feelings of being important and connecting us to those past feelings as well, which can be really good. But of course, if those past feelings are not good, then it has the opposite effect. So it can evoke painful memories. Now, of course, the other thing that I want to say is that I never want us to avoid talking about painful memories either, because that kind of shuts people down, doesn't it? When they've got something really important that they want to talk about, we need to be able to hold that space too. But I have to say, as a young 17-year-old, I wasn't comfortable and ready to do that. I didn't feel I had the skills to be able to hold Bill in painful situations. It would have brought up a lot for me. I feel like I could do it now. So it's being clear that there's a space, there's a place for reminiscence, but there isn't always, we don't have to use it. We've got other stuff in my toolkit to use. So the other thing that we will talk about is having key information about the person so that we can get them into having a conversation by using almost like that secret weapon. So if I knew, for example, that somebody was interested in racing cars or in gardening or, you know, or specific places that they used to go to, then we could use that to create conversation. But with Bill, I had nothing. I literally had nothing. And so I created conversation. I learned to create conversation from nothing in a scenario where there felt that like there was nothing, and developed a great relationship with him. And in this corridor, this comfy corridor, the comfy corner, he had a bookshelf next to him. Now, I believe that it's very unlikely that Bill would have even learnt to read, but he was sat next to a bookshelf full of books. And so I started playing this game with Bill where we would look at the titles of the book. I would read it out, the title of the book to him. And then we would say something like, you know, I wonder what this book's about. What would this book be about, do you think? And just from the title, we would have some fun in creating what the book could possibly be about. Who would the characters be? What would they get up to? And just by being really curious about, you know, using imagination, we took ourselves on some great journeys. so just the fact of let's make something up is a great way to create conversation. And it's something that I've taken on throughout my career, this let's make stuff up. Let's not be afraid to create things. In one of the stories, he talked a lot about, actually more than one of the stories, that one of the things that kept coming up for him was about outside and about the trees. And, you know, it was, again, one of those things. I was so young and I wasn't very good at asserting myself or making assertions for other people too, but I really felt strongly that it would be great to get Bill outside. So simple, isn't it? Thinking back, you know, hopefully today this would never happen, but thinking back then, that was a major event, getting somebody actually outside. And we did, and it was lovely in his wheelchair and how he lit up. And so I started to build this picture of the things that Bill loved. So, you know, we tend to think, right, we have to have all of this information to be able to communicate with someone, but actually we can start from ground zero, if you like. We can start from right now with nothing, but we just need to be really curious and notice what lights them up. You know, the other thing then was to move his chair so that he could actually see out of a window and see the trees rather than be sat next to a bookshelf when he couldn't read. So yes, so connecting with nature, and then using ways to connect with the senses as well, so the smelling of flowers and those sorts of things. And the other game that we used to play was the random page game, where you open a book on a random page and you close your eyes, or get Bill to close his eyes and stab his finger into the page, and we would find a word, and then you can go for it. You can kind of ask, you know, what does this word make you think of? Or, you know, what other words are like that word? Again, you know, just completely made up. These are just all things that I would kind of make up to make activity out of nothing. We literally had nothing in terms of activity materials or anything. This bookshelf was it. And that's what we kind of made it from. And there were also magazines that had been left around in the staff rooms as well. So that was something, again, that I kind of would use the pictures, and if they were gossipy magazines, they were the best for Bill. He quite enjoyed me reading like little snippets of those out as well, because they were meaty, and you know, when else would he have got to hear those stories? So that worked really well as well. And then the other thing was creating a scrapbook for him. So as you can imagine, this ended up being quite a big project for me, working with Bill. And it was like one of my first real sort of really sort of feeling like I could create something. And I have to say, my manager was absolutely amazing to allow me to do that. So we created a scrapbook of the things that he loved right now. We didn't talk about the past. We just talked about right now, and also, you know, imagining a future as well, or using our imagination. So I'm just to kind of recap some things that I've mentioned, and then I'm going to send you off into pairs and get you to just have a little go at having these really crazy conversations and see how you get on. So number one is, of course, establishing that connection. Okay, so you might want to write this down, because it might help you when you get into your pairs. The number one is establishing a connection, and I would always do that either by, you know, what the person's wearing. That's always a good one, isn't it? I love your blue top. I love that colour on you. Or if it's not on what they're wearing, then maybe it's about the environment. It could be, oh, it's really hot around here, isn't it? Or isn't it cold today? You know, really, really basic observations about the place that we're both in together. It might be, if we're near a window, we might be able to gaze out the window and say, wow, those flowers are brilliant pink, aren't they? Aren't they amazing colour? So that first establishing of a connection is through an observation, your observation, and it's positive, always positive. Number two is meeting them where they are. So they may think that they're younger. They may not think that they're in their 90s. They might think they're in their 40s. They may believe they're in a completely different environment. My grandma the latter days went into a care home, and actually she didn't have dementia, but latterly she definitely had some cognitive impairment, and she believed that she was in her house and all these people were staff. So she had this really wonderful reality. She was totally happy with it. So we kind of, yeah, that's fine to go along with that. So meeting them where they are and exploring the conversation from that point of view. So that's where they believe they are physically and in time, but also emotionally. So stepping into their world to ask questions so that we can better understand where they are, rather than pulling them constantly into our own reality. I think that curiosity goes a long way in just discovering where they are and just stepping in with them. Number 3 is giving them any information that they need to participate. So one of the things I quote here is there's a book that you may have read called I'm Still Here by John Ziesel. I don't know, some of you may have read that. In that book, he talks about giving as much information as we possibly can to the person with dementia so that we're not leaving them guessing. So he gives an example where a son goes to visit his mother with his son, so her grandson, and he says, "Hello, Mum." So first of all, "Hello, Mum." So already he's saying who she is to him. "Hello, Mum. This is David, your grandson, who you enjoy singing with." So this conversation is brilliant because it's saying, I'm your son, this is your grandson, and this is what you love doing together. So there's no guesswork, there's no feeling of anxiety around who these people are or what you're meant to do. You're giving them everything that they could possibly need to participate in whatever it is that you're doing. So yeah, the author's name was John Ziesel. It's Zeisel. I might even have it in my drawer somewhere. Yeah, I do highly recommend it, actually. It's a great book. Yeah, I can't find it now. And there's some great, he talks about some great ways of using distraction technique as well, for people with dementia when it's required. I think I might put it upstairs. But yeah, John Ziesel, I'm Still Here. Number 4 is use stuff. So basically use props. So we know that the brain works better when we can use as many senses as possible. But if you can use a prop, so as an example in that story, I was using a book. I was using the bookshelf as my prop. So it doesn't have to be anything particularly elaborate. It could be anything that you can put your hand on. You know, I've got an empty bottle here, and this is what I'm going to get you to do in a minute in your pairs, is to just to grab something. It doesn't have to be anything spectacular at all, just something that can be an item that you can talk about. So use a prop and then, you know, add imagination. So this bottle, I might say to you, what do you think you could put in this bottle? Let's see if we can think of as many things as possible that we could store in this bottle. And we might need to think about how small the neck is. And there's a whole conversation starter right there. Number 5 is to be genuinely curious. People with dementia know when you're not being genuinely curious. I always say, you know, the amygdala is the part of the brain that in dementia actually gets bigger. The amygdala is the emotional center of the brain. So everything else is shrinking. The amygdala is actually growing. So somebody with dementia is so able to know when we are not being honest, when we're not being actually there and in the moment with them. And that's why it's so important to be genuinely curious. If you have absolutely no interest whatsoever in the answer, or no interest whatsoever in having the conversation, then I think we're better not to have it than to try and have it in a really ungenuine way, because actually that's even more disturbing, if you like, for the person with dementia, because they know it, they can tell, they absolutely know. And number 6 is to validate. So validate everything that that person says. So for example, with my bottle conversation, if somebody said to me, I could fit a football in there, then I'd validate that. Amazing. We could fit a football in there if we took the air out, maybe, and stuffed it in. So it's not an immediate, no, you couldn't fit a football in there. That's a silly suggestion. We're going to validate it. We're going to find a way to help them to succeed in their conversation. So we might need to bend a little bit. We might need to use our imaginations a bit more, but we want to validate wherever possible. All right. So having those 6 points, okay, this is the bit now where I'm going to, or actually it's going to have to be Shania because I can't do it, can I? Shania's
All done.
it.
There's one group of 3 and the rest are in pairs.
Amazing. So you're going to go off into pairs or threes. And what I want you to do is using those 3 points, I want you to both have a go. Okay, so how long should we do it for? Should we do it for, let's say, 8 minutes, Shania? So you'll have 4 minutes each. The person with the shortest hair goes first, okay? And I just want you to have a go at having
20 seconds.
Still counting down. Oh, they'll all pop in a minute like that. How were your conversations?
Enjoyable.
Oh, good. I can't wait to hear about them.
Say again?
I can't wait to hear all about them.
Oh, you saw the prop. Yeah, you saw the prop I was using, Laura.
A £5. No, right? No, Irene, share with us what you talked about.
Well, I said about the picture on the £5 note, whose picture it was, and Elizabeth could tell me. And I asked Elizabeth if she knew that the Queen had just had another new great-grandchild, and it was called after her, and it was called using her pet name. Did she know the Queen's pet name, you know? And then Elizabeth, of course, being Elizabeth, was happy that this baby is being called after the Queen.
Oh.
Yeah, no, we talked about that a wee bit, you know, and different things. And then Elizabeth used a prop, which was a jar of honey. And of course, a jar of honey, she asked me, did I like honey? Yes. Where did the honey come from? The bees. And she told me that honey has different flavors depending on what flowers the pollen had come from. Yep. And then, you know, we chatted. I said I liked honey in hot milk, and I liked it on toast. And she said she liked hers in tea. And I said, and of course, Winnie the Pooh liked honey.
Of course.
And I started talking about Winnie the Pooh.
It sounds like you had a great conversation.
We did have a great conversation, didn't we, Elizabeth?
We did, yeah.
Did you start with the establishing a connection? How did you start, or did you go straight into the prop?
Straight into the prop, because
I
mean, you know, visually it was easy.
Yeah,
you know, everyone knows what a £5 note is, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great prop. Yeah, brilliant. Would anyone else like to share their conversation? I'm desperate. I was saying to Shania, I can't wait to hear what they've talked about.
Laura, can I just say, I had a brilliant conversation with Marcella. She went second and she whipped out a yoga mat and said, what could I do with this? I thought, oh, well, you could have a lie down. And she went, I think it could be a magic rug. And she was going to fly to Italy. It was big enough for friends, trips to Cornwall. It was a really, really lovely conversation, and used imagination to do it. I was very impressed. Yeah, thought it was excellent.
Sounds like a lovely use of imagination. And what did you use, Louise, as your prop?
My imagination is sadly a little bit lacking. I used a pencil case, which was just that I got on the desk, and we talked about things like that. But I was definitely upstaged by the by the flying yoga mat. That was brilliant.
But a pencil case is just, you know, it's a thing that you can talk about, isn't it? That's okay too. What else did we have then? So can I pick on someone, or is that really mean?
No.
I'm gonna pick on Ben. Can't hear you though.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. So we had so I spoke to Elena, and we had a really good conversation regarding so I asked about the so I sort of greeted her, and then I noticed that there was an art on her back wall, so I asked about that. So she said about how she said she got it from Ireland. I'd asked how many times she'd been to Ireland, and then she mentioned about being in a sort of to a funeral there, but it was a funny funeral, and there was sort of lots of drinking there because it was a typically Irish wedding. Exactly, sorry. So sorry, funeral. And then we spoke about and then I asked her about what drinks she likes. So we talked a bit about that. So we didn't use any props because there was 3 of us. We were sort of a bit more sort of limited to time. But yeah, that's how we got. That's what sort of we talked about. Yeah, and then
did it feel difficult coming up with conversation, or was it easy?
I mean, we were saying, interestingly enough, that because we could see in each other's rooms, and we could see what interest, it was quite easy. So I instantly saw the picture, and I instantly targeted that. I said if we were in an ordinary teaching room or something, it might have been a bit more difficult because we wouldn't have had all those props.
Yeah.
But because of doing it like this, it's a bit easier to think of things to ask. So so it's good.
Great, thank you, Ben. Yeah, sounds like you had a great conversation. Who would like to go next? I'll let you wave at me. Somebody wants to go next. Yeah, Rosa.
Well, I just was pointing out to her about that. For example, I'm unable. I visit people in their homes. So this is something that is a moment that maybe you have to straight away find that connection, because you are visiting someone. You maybe have a couple of papers telling what he done in the past, but really know what's going on now. So you have to be that quickly, like, for example, we're doing like, I arrive to their house and I can see there is a lot of pots and boxes and paint. So I ask what's going on here. And she explains, she was decorating, and then we'll talk about what would you like to see when you're decorating a room. What would you like to see? I like books. My house is full of books. So this is something that I wanted to point out as well, that sometimes we need to talk a little bit about us. We see the moment that they're willing to listen to us, and they say, okay, you take it seriously. You really want to be here. You actually want to talk to me. And they start to talk, yeah? So
Rosa, that's such a good point. And it's one that I didn't have in my numbers, but actually, do you know what? Turning up as yourself and sharing a bit of yourself with somebody goes such a long way. I mean, nobody wants to have a conversation where somebody who doesn't tell anything about themselves, and I can remember that as a student nurse, being told, those boundaries are really important, and the professional boundaries, of course they are, but being able to share who you are, what your interests are, what excites you, what you find funny, that's how we connect as humans, isn't it? It's so important to do that. So that's a really good point, Rosa. Thank you.
Can I just add something? I have worked with mental health and learning difficulties before, and the policy with working with people like that was not to share anything about your personal information. But I found, since we're working with the elderly and with people with dementia, it's just part of everyday conversation.
Absolutely. It's just so important, isn't it? How else can we have that human connection? But you're right, Pat. I've been there through the the red tape stuff, and certainly, you know, as a young woman, not feeling like I could challenge that as well. I think I would challenge that now, but at the time, just do as you're told, don't you? But you can see how it's affecting the relationships that you're trying to build.
Definitely.
Then of course you can still have boundaries. You're not going to give out your address and, you know, your phone number and say, you know, phone me in the evening or anything. You know, there are boundaries that we can have, but still share who we are, so that we can have those. Does anyone else want to share? Is there a group or a couple that we haven't? Ruth, let's have Ruth.
Hi there. I was talking with Sian, and we just very briefly introduced each other and said a bit about what we did, but just to get some idea, and I think that was quite useful. And then I shared with her my lovely Radley mug.
Oh, I love it.
And we talked about what might go into there, and then we eventually got around to that she would maybe put soup in it, and we're able to talk about her mum making a soup, and the reason why she has the soup made is because it's too salty, the stuff that comes from the supermarkets or whatever. But it was nice talking about her mum as well, and what her mum did for her. And then we got on to, well, that's something that you'd usually put in a mug. What might you put in there that you don't usually put? And we got onto shells. So then we had a great conversation about limpet shells, and I couldn't tell you all the different ones. Sian lives near the sea, so she knows all about those. And then talking about would we put in different sizes, or would they all be the same? And she was saying if it was a big shell, then you'd only be able to get one in there. And then we swapped over, and Sian produced this dishcloth, which, because it's been a really hot day today, I suddenly thought that would have been perfect to put on my head just to shelter me a bit from the sun. But somehow or other we got down the road of talking about colours of flowers and what favourite colours were, and we happened to share the same favourite colour, and that I liked freesias, and then we were all made to stop and come back again.
You were made to stop. That's a good sign, isn't it, when the conversation is flowing so much that you were made to stop.
Yeah,
sounds like some great ideas, and that's just from a mug. You know, that's amazing. A mug and a tea towel, that you can have those sorts of conversations. Is there anybody that we haven't spoken to yet? I think everybody might have fed back now, have they?
I think there's Vanessa and Val. So I started off trying to establish a connection, and I was just saying to Val, I said, what a beautiful top you're wearing. You know, it's green and it looks like it's got flowers on. I said, where would you see flowers? You know, I wonder where you'd see them. And then we started exploring a little bit more about where she was and what the weather was like and what does it look like now. So just trying to establish if they, you know, she understood in her own reality. And then I brought in my prompts, and the only thing I had was like a little was my placemat. So I was like, I wonder what would go on my placemat. So what kind of things would you put on there? And can you see the picture? It's got like a bunny on there. So we just talking about bunnies, and I was sharing about my little house bunnies and where would you find bunnies and so forth. And then just validating, and then it was exactly right what one of the other ladies was saying, sorry I don't know your name, about the therapeutic use of self, you know, using little bits about yourself to try and kind of like inflate the conversation. So yeah.
Fantastic, Vanessa. I love how you just say, you know, we talked about my house bunnies, and I remember, Vanessa, that you have actual rabbits, don't you?
Yes, I do.
In your house. Yeah. Amazing. Big ones, if I remember rightly.
Yeah. 7 kilos. Yeah.
You could definitely have used one of those as a prop.
I should have. It would fill the screen, so I don't think.
It's great to see you again.
How are you?
Brilliant. Okay, so you have had some tremendous conversations. You really haven't, and I hope that that having that sort of 6-stage process, if you like, which don't have to be in any particular order, may help with that. So I hope that was useful, and I hope it was also useful to go into your pairs and give it a go as well. I can see nodding, so that's good. And it just kind of finally, there's a few things that I would just want to let you know about. So any of you that aren't in our Facebook group, then please do join, because it would be really great to have you in there. We're always looking for new members in our group. It's for cognitive stimulation therapy facilitators, but that doesn't mean you don't have to be providing CST. You might just be interested in it, and that's okay too, to just come along and join. There's lots of you nodding, so I'm assuming that a lot of you are maybe in it already. Can I have hands up if you're in the Facebook group? Oh my goodness, most of you then. Yes. Rosa, you're not, and Irene.
I don't have Facebook, so but I got you somewhere there. I got subscribed in some of your events and courses.
Well, that's good. So it's good that you're hearing about them, because yeah, I think that's my main concern, is that that we don't get to keep in contact with people. So if they're in the Facebook group, they can see when things are coming up, which is great. And then I guess the other thing that I have to ask you cheekily is whether I can tell you very quickly, less than 4 minutes, about the fellowship that we provide, and whether that would be okay for me to do that now.
Yeah.
Is that okay? Yes, good. You're all lovely. That's fine. That's fine. Okay.
So are you.
Irene, I feel the love. Okay, what I'm going to do is share my screen. Shania's like, will she though? What do you reckon, Shania? Can you all see the right thing though? Can you see?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yay. Okay, brilliant. So very quickly, this is what our fellowship is all about, okay? So I've split it into 3 different sections now, so that it's much more clear what you're getting. But basically, the first part is the vision. So in this module, you will create your vision for your future, so you can begin to follow a really clear set of plans to actualize your drive to make a difference for people living in your community. So we're going to be looking at the whole project planning, business planning, everything that you could possibly need to get ready and started on your vision. The second part is the build, and in this module we'll be mastering creating a reliable referral stream, so making sure that we've got lots of referrals coming through to you, and we'll get you prepared and ready to open. So essentially you're going to get everything ready so that you can provide your own CST sessions, your own full day clubs if you want to, half-day workshops. It's completely up to you. That's all part of your vision, as well as which bits that you want to do. So using our methods that we've used for the last 11 years, it's scary. You'll create a smooth customer journey from referral right the way through to their first day with you, and you'll have everything in place and ready basically to run. And then, so that's the first 12 weeks is the vision and build. We're going to go through that quite quickly and get you up and ready. And then the final 12 weeks, that's right, isn't it? It's 24 weeks in the total. I can't do the maths. The final 12 weeks is where you begin. So essentially in this module, you will meet us on a weekly basis. You'll be meeting us on a weekly basis right from the beginning. But in this section, you will bring any difficulties that you're having. We'll use reflective practice, and we'll really develop you as a facilitator and project manager. So you can iron out any issues that arrive, and you can be really confident going solo. So after the 6 months, which is when the fellowship ends, you are flying very, very strongly and alone, but you still have us in the Facebook group, of course. So the delivery is 18 live interactive training sessions over 24 weeks. There's a dedicated training platform, which is also has additional recorded sessions, which we're putting together now. It's getting very exciting because we're getting close. So there'll be recorded sessions as well that we don't have time to cover in the hour-and-a-half session, weekly session. There is all the worksheets, the toolkits and the templates that you could possibly need to run your own sessions or day clubs. Access to a VIP group, which is only open to our fellows. So that is a place where you have access to us. I want to say 24/7, but let's be realistic. I'm not going to be answering at 3 o'clock in the morning, but I will get back to you the next morning, or one of the team will. And also some great bits in here is the personal development coaching and the business development coaching. So those of you that don't know, I'm also a mindset coach. So I'll use my mindset coaching skills to help you to kind of get out of your own way when it comes to building your business or project. And also we've got Kate, who's my other half, who will be doing some business development coaching and really helping you to have a sustainable business or project that really works for you. So I'll stop sharing now. That is it. And if you're interested in the fellowship at all, please do get in contact with Shania. Shania's over here, and she'll organise for us to have a discussion so we can really I'll go into much more detail about what that looks like. The fellowship starts in September, the first week of September. We're so excited. So we've got some fellows signed up already, but we do have places. And we would love to take people through who are really passionate about creating change for people living with dementia, because that's what we believe in. And we know we can't do it alone. We know that we need lots of people like you who are willing to step out there, get brave, and change your communities for the better. So I think that's it.
I'm sorry, Laura. I know you want to wrap up, but I think it's so important as well, like the CST, because now I'm on placement at the moment, and I'm working with a lot of like dementia patients as well, and some of them are in isolation. I think I was just talking to Val about it, in care homes and so forth, and they've got no stimulation at all in their rooms, and hopefully I can go out and see a lady who's unable to see her family, and do some kind of like individualized sort of like cognitive stimulation, and little things that she's got nothing to stimulate her in her room. So it's even like using your techniques of trying to be imaginative about picking up things and so forth and creating a story is really, really helpful.
Yeah, thanks, Vanessa. Yeah, and I mean, you get all of the tools to be able to do that. And essentially it's so much more than just a CST training. It gives you everything to have the real foundations of something that's sustainable. That's the problem with a lot of the work that we do, is that when it's project work, is you get it up and running and then the funding runs out and it goes. So we need to find a way to make this sustainable, and that's the hope, that we can help you to do that in whatever way we can. And we'll, the thing is that this is the first time we're running people through the fellowship as well, so I can tell you that we will be giving 150% to you, because we want it to work for you. And we will do, obviously we'll do consequent fellowships, but these are like this first one's going to be the best. Of course it is. There we go. So thank you ever so much, and thank you for letting me do the little pitch at the end. I always feel a little bit like, oh God, here we go, she's pitching again. But the reason I'm pitching is because I want to be working with some really great individuals who want to create change, and I want to see it in my lifetime so I can retire. Brilliant.
Future workshops, Laura?
Sorry?
Jamboard?
Oh,
Future workshops.
one last thing. So future workshops, Shania's going to put a Jamboard link in the chat, and it'll take you onto a Jamboard. I think I'll let you do it now. So if you click on it, don't worry if you lose me, because it'll come in front. And in here, you can, on the left-hand side, you'll see a little sticky note. So underneath the arrow, there's a little sticky note there. If you click on that, and then you can write something on the sticky note and press save. You don't have to do this now, you can do this after the session. If you have any ideas about future workshops, or you'd like us to cover something that you're particularly struggling with at the moment, or you would like us to cover something that would be useful, stick it on your sticky note and pop it in there, and Shania and I will pick these up over the next day or so. So just write whatever you like. If you fancy me covering a certain thing, whether it's something around CST or about communication or about behaviours that challenge, you name it, stick it on a sticky note.
Laura, can I ask you please, is this the second of your workshops?
I think we've done more, haven't we, Shania?
Yeah, I think we've done 3.
Is it possible to, hear recordings of the ones that I've missed?
Yeah, of course. I can send it all across to you tomorrow, Irene.
That would be terrific, Laura.
No problem.
Yep. And look forward to joining your fellowship.
Amazing. It would be lovely to have you on board, Irene. It really would.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, lovely people. Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming along. I'm sure I don't want to cut you off. If anyone's got any questions, we do have 2 minutes. If anyone does have any questions.
I was just going to ask, is there a cost to join the fellowship?
Vanessa, there is a cost to joining the fellowship. Shall I tell you it out loud now?
Yes.
It's